In the snow-clad mountains of Ladakh, where the silence of the Himalayas is broken only by the icy winds, the world has once again been reminded of how fragile peace really is when two of the world's most powerful militaries stand eye to eye. In recent weeks, reports have emerged of fresh skirmishes between Indian and Chinese troops along the line of actual control, the tense and disputed border that stretches across thousands of kilometers. These clashes, while not on the scale of Gawan in 2020, have once again raised alarms both domestically and internationally. Yet, India's army chief has made a statement that caught everyone's attention. He has described these incidents as local, not global. On the surface, this may seem like a simple attempt to calm tensions, but beneath the surface, it opens up a complex and fascinating web of questions, strategies, and narratives that shape the very heart of geopolitics in Asia today. To understand why these clashes happen and why they matter so deeply, we must step back and consider the history of the India-China border. Unlike many other international boundaries, this line is not a simple border agreed upon by both nations. Instead, it is a line of actual control, a term that itself reflects ambiguity. Both countries have different perceptions of where this line actually runs, and in many places their claims overlap. This creates a tense environment where even routine patrols by soldiers can spark confrontation. Imagine two neighbors with a disputed wall. Every time one side steps a little further, the other side sees it as trespassing. But here we're not talking about private land. We're talking about high-altitude battlefields where national pride, sovereignty, and military prestige are on the line. The Army chief's statement that these clashes are local, not global, might sound like an attempt to minimize the problem. But it is also a reflection of India's strategic calculus. On one hand, India does not want to send a signal that it is weak or dismissive of Chinese aggression. On the other hand, it does not want to escalate matters unnecessarily in a way that could disrupt global perceptions of stability in Asia, scare investors, or complicate India's relations with partners like the United States, Russia, and the European Union by calling them local incidents. India is essentially trying to frame them as manageable, controllable, and not reflective of a larger global crisis. This helps buy time, manage diplomacy, and reduce pressure to react aggressively in a way that might escalate into something much larger. But make no mistake, even if described as local, these incidents are anything but trivial. Every time Indian and Chinese soldiers clash, it is a reminder that Asia's two giants remain locked in a tense rivalry that has no easy solution. Both countries have spent billions fortifying their positions in Ladakh, Arunachal Pradesh, and Sikkim. Both have built roads, airstrips, bunkers, and supply lines in the harshest of terrains. And both have signaled through actions rather than words that they are prepared for the long haul. India's rapid push to expand border infrastructure is not just about connectivity. It is about ensuring that soldiers can be supplied in a crisis. China's construction of villages in disputed areas is not just about development. It is about asserting control and changing facts on the ground. The Army chief's framing also reflects an important domestic consideration. India is heading into a period where national security is not just about military preparedness, but also about public perception. Every border clash immediately becomes a headline, dominating primetime debates, fueling nationalism, and shaping political narratives. By calling these skirmishes local, the Army chief helps prevent panic, keeps the focus on broader issues like economic growth, and ensures that the government retains room to maneuver diplomatically. If every incident were described as a global crisis, it would corner policymakers into taking more aggressive actions, which could spiral out of control. But while India tries to play down the global implications, the rest of the world is watching closely. The United States, for instance, sees these clashes not just as local skirmishes, but as part of the larger puzzle of how China asserts itself regionally and globally. Washington views India as a crucial partner in balancing Chinese power in Asia, and border tensions only deepen that strategic partnership. Similarly, Japan, Australia, and the European Union quietly monitor these developments. Understanding that India's ability to stand firm against China has ripple effects on global supply chains, trade routes, and strategic stability. For Russia, which has historically been close to both India and China, the situation is awkward, especially given its own entanglements with the West after Ukraine. Moscow does not want to be forced into choosing sides. Yet every skirmish along the India-China border nudges the balance of power in Asia in subtle ways. For the average Indian, these clashes carry a different meaning. Beyond the strategic and global implications, they touch on deep questions of sovereignty, pride, and identity. India has long seen itself as a rising power, a civilizational state that deserves respect on the global stage. Every time its soldiers are challenged on the border, it feels like an affront, not just to the military but to the nation itself. This is why even minor scuffles are treated with such seriousness. For China, too, these border disputes are not just about land. They are about asserting dominance, testing India's resolve, and signaling strength to its own population as well as to the wider world. So, when the army chief says these are local, not global, it is both a strategic necessity and a diplomatic balancing act. On one hand, it reassures Indians that the situation is under control. On the other, it signals to the world that India is not interested in escalating tensions. But beneath this calm surface lies a reality that is far more volatile. Local or not, every clash chips away at trust, deepens rivalries, and adds to the stockpile of unresolved tensions that could one day explode. It is important to recognize that these border skirmishes are not happening in isolation. They come against a backdrop of intense geopolitical shifts. The United States is recalibrating its Asia policy. China is facing economic headwinds and growing pushback from the West. And India is emerging as a major economic and strategic player. The Indo-Pacific is now the epicenter of global politics, and in that theater, the Indo-China rivalry is one of the most consequential dynamics. Local clashes may not directly alter the balance of power, but they contribute to an environment of mistrust that shapes how alliances are built, how policies are made, and how future conflicts might unfold. Let us also remember that these local incidents have a way of spiraling into much bigger confrontations. In 1962, a border dispute turned into a full-scale war between India and China. In 2020, what began as a series of small face-offs escalated into the deadly Gaoan clash, the worst in decades. Each time, the world was reminded that the Himalayas may be remote and desolate, but they are also one of the most dangerous flashpoints in modern geopolitics. The army chief's words are designed to prevent another spiral, but words alone cannot erase the structural realities that make this border so volatile. When people hear that the army chief has called these incidents local, some interpret it as weakness, others as prudence. But in truth, it is about perspective. For the soldiers stationed at 15,000 feet in freezing conditions, every skirmish is a matter of life and death. For the policymakers in Delhi, it is a matter of balancing military readiness with diplomatic strategy. For the global powers watching from afar, it is another data point in assessing the rise of Asia and the future of global order. The same incident, seen from different vantage points, carries different meanings. Looking ahead, the challenge for India is not just managing local skirmishes, but developing a long-term strategy that ensures stability without compromising sovereignty. This requires a mix of military modernization, infrastructure development, intelligence gathering, and above all, diplomatic engagement. India cannot wish away China's presence on its border, but it can ensure that it is prepared for any eventuality. It can also build partnerships with like-minded nations that share its concerns about Chinese assertiveness. This is why India's role in the Quad, its defense ties with the United States, and its outreach to Europe and Southeast Asia are all critical pieces of the puzzle. For China, too, the challenge is not just tactical but strategic. Every clash with India pushes New Delhi closer to Washington, strengthens anti-China sentiment in Asia, and complicates Beijing's own efforts to project itself as a responsible power. If China truly wants stability in Asia, it cannot afford to let local incidents undermine its larger goals. Yet, given the nature of authoritarian politics, nationalism, and great power rivalry, it is unlikely that China will back down easily. This ensures that the India-China border will remain one of the world's most dangerous fault lines for years to come. Ultimately, whether these clashes are local or global depends on how we choose to interpret them. In the narrow sense, yes, they are local, confined to remote valleys and icy ridges where soldiers patrol disputed lines. But in the broader sense, they are deeply global, intertwined with the strategies of great powers, the stability of the Indo-Pacific, and the future of world order. The army chief may be right to reassure the public that these are local incidents, but history has shown that in geopolitics, local sparks can ignite global fires. And so, as we watch the Himalayas once again become the backdrop of confrontation, we are reminded of the delicate balance that defines our world. Peace is maintained not by denying conflict, but by managing it, containing it, and ensuring it does not spiral out of control. The Army Chief's words are part of that effort. But beyond the rhetoric lies a reality that demands constant vigilance, preparation, and foresight. Because in the end, whether local or global, the stakes are nothing less than the future of two nations, and perhaps the future of Asia itself.